This is a lesson for Chapter 2, Section 8, Proportions and Similar Figures. So when we're talking about similar figures are ones in which the sides are proportional and the angles are congruent. So let's write that down. So we've got congruent angles and proportional sides. And so if we have proportional sides, we can use proportions to solve for a missing side, and that's what we're going to end up doing here. So these two are similar, and there's a little symbol they use for similar, and what I can do is I can use this right here. It's a little tilde, and it just means that this triangle is similar to this triangle. And so we can say triangle ABC is similar to triangle DEF. Anyhow, we'll go ahead and set up a little ratio for this first triangle here, 5/4, and as long as I'm consistent with how I set this one up, like for instance, 5 is this side right here. Well, the side that corresponds to 5 is 10, so that's why I have to have 10 in this location here. B corresponds to 4, so I'd have B down below. And then I'm ready to use cross products. So I'm going to multiply the numbers diagonally. 5B equals 4 times 10 gives me 40. And so I have 40 equals 5b, so when I go ahead and solve by dividing by 5, that's where I'm getting b equals 8. So the next one is a very similar problem, and so I'm going to set up a proportion. There's lots of ways to set these up. So for instance, I could do 14.8 over 6.2 is similar, or is the same as 17.2. Now I picked 17.2 on top because notice how it corresponds to the 14.8 over y, which corresponds to 6.2. Now, there's lots of ways to set these up. As long as your numbers diagonal are the same, you're going to get the same answer. So I'll multiply those two numbers there. So I've got 6 2/10 times by 17.2 gives me 106.64. And then I have to set that equal to 14.8y. So I'm ready to do the division, and that'll give me my answer. So let's take that answer and divide by 14.8. And we get this number that repeats. So I'm going to just round this to 7.2. The 0 is not big enough to round that up, so we'll say it's about 7.2. So let's take a look at another type that we could end up seeing. And here it says a museum has a wax sculpture of historical village. The scale is 1.5 to 8. Well, it doesn't say units here, but what we do know is that this is representative of the model. The first number in this case is the model, and 8 represents the actual. And so you can see it because the model is going to end up being smaller than the actual. And that kind of makes sense. It's a representation of this hut, and it's only 5 feet tall. You'd think that the hut would definitely be bigger than that, the actual. And so let's go ahead and find out how big the actual hut is, how tall it is to the nearest whole number. So we know that 1.5 represents the model, 8 represents the actual. Well, this sculpture represents the model of 5 feet. So 5 feet's got to go on top, x on the bottom. So now we're ready to solve. We're just using cross products. X times 1.5 and 8 times 5, so we have 40 there, and we do the division. So when we set up that, we have 40 divided by 1 5/10. That gives me this number, 26.6 repeating. So since they asked us to change it to the nearest whole number, the 6 is large enough to round this up. So we end up with 27 feet. So on this next problem, it says, on a map, the length of a river is 4.75 inches, and the actual is 247 miles. They want to know what is the scale factor. Well, the scale factor is just a fraction. It is the model over actual, and that's how we have this set up. And so when we go ahead and do the division, because we want to make it just 1 inch as to how many miles, we go ahead and do some work there. So we'll go ahead and punch in that in the calculator, 4.75 divided by 247. and we get this fraction. And if we go ahead and change that fraction to a decimal, or I mean into a fraction, or that decimal into a fraction, we end up with 1 over 52 miles. And so the other way to end up getting that is we could end up doing 4.2 or 4.75. If we take that 4.75 and set it over 247, we could set it equal to 1 over x. We want 1 on top. And then we can go ahead and do this multiplication. 4.75x equals 247. And then do the division that way, and we'll get that 1 over 52. So let me show you that. So 247 divided by 4.75, and that gives us that 52. So x is 52, and so we have 1 inch is to 52 miles. Let me go ahead and rewrite that. 1 inch is to 52 miles. So let's take a look at another type that we'll end up seeing or possibly see. So here we have this this scale drawing, and it says 1 inch is to 3 feet. And what are the actual dimensions of the room? So the actual dimensions of the room are 8.33 inches. So we'll put that 8.33 over x. We don't know what the actual is, but we know that the scale factor is 1 to 3. So we just have to multiply that 8.33 times by 3, and that gives me 24.99. And so we'll just go ahead and use that number. So x equals 24.99 feet. And then I'll do the next one, and the next one's 5 inches is to x feet times by 1 over 3, and that one's a little bit easier. X is 15 feet. So we'd say the dimensions would be 24 99/100 feet by 15 feet. Well, what are the actual dimensions of the bathroom? Same sort of thing. We have 267 over x equals 1 over 3. So we get to multiply that 267 times by 3, that gives me 801. So x equals 801. And then we have the 3.33, so 3.33 over x equals 1 over 3. And we go ahead and plug those numbers in. So 3.33 times by 3 gives me 9.99 feet. So our actual dimensions are 8.01 feet by 9.99 feet. And then the last part, and again, they probably did just round this. This probably was 2 2/3 and this 8 1/3, but we'll just leave it the way it is. What is the actual length of the exterior wall between the 2 bedrooms? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's call this one. This is going to end up being the 10 feet here. We'll call 9.9 pretty close to 10 feet, and 8.01 pretty close to 8 feet, and this 24.99 pretty close to 25 feet. So we can go ahead and adjust that real quick. And we called this one 8 by 10 feet. So we see that this distance is 8 feet. This entire distance, though, is 25 feet. So the distance between the value of x would be the subtraction of 25 minus 8 to give me 17 feet. So those are the types of problems you're going to see on tonight's homework. Good luck.